Hello and welcome back to another episode of the ENRG Sport podcast. This is Behind the Byline. It's making a return to both the podcast scene and video scene, and what better way to start a reboot of a good series started by, of course, Jimmy Braidwood with, of course, Eilidh Barbour. Eilidh, thank you very much for joining me here in Glasgow today. It was a bit of a kerfuffle to kind of get the studio space sorted, but we've managed to get it all sorted. Thank you very much for
Not
coming
a problem.
along.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah, just to kick things off, obviously a lot of people who watch these kind of interviews and podcasts are fellow kind of journalism students, or people who've just graduated and kind of break into industry. How did you initially get into journalism?
I'm going to try and remember how I did. No, I actually think I'd done a couple of little bits of work experience before I went to uni. I was quite lucky. I grew up in a really small village just north of Perth, and when I was about 14 roughly, a family moved to the village, and Andy was he was quite high up in Five Live. So being a small village, everyone knows everyone. So I asked him if I could come along and see what he did and how it worked. And he took me to a few games at McDiarmid Park. I think rugby actually it was rather than football. He did a lot of rugby and golf. So I did some work experience with him and kind of kept in touch with him when I went to uni, did more work experience and kind of met people through that. John Beattie was one of the people I met who was very good in giving me opportunities at Radio Scotland. He was doing quite a few various series of sporting things over summer when the football wasn't on, so things like the sort of Scottish Athletics Championships, Scottish Swimming Championships, those sorts of events that I went along to, and sort of made some of my contacts through that. Finished my degree, tried to find a way in, but it's quite hard when you have to pay bills suddenly all of a sudden, council tax and all that. So I went abroad for a year, taught English, made some money, came back, and I knew I could probably last about 6 months before I had to go back to work. So I just emailed everyone, went and met lots of people, I did a BBC Blast programme, which was, I don't even know if it still exists, but something that the BBC ran, one of their initiatives. They've got lots of similar ones now if that one doesn't exist anymore. I did one of them. So yeah, various different things, and then eventually got my first job cutting football highlights on sports, not sports scene, Scott Sport, STV's equivalent. So doing cutting the football highlights, going to the games, logging matches, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to go into sports journalism? Was there any other kind of ideas when you were growing up, or was it always, I want to go into the...
It was always sport.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do something with sport, and it was when I was watching Grandstand one Saturday afternoon, and I think it was the first time that Hazel Irvine had ever presented it, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's like a Scottish accent on the main telly. So that's when I kind of thought, if she can do it, there's not that much different between her and me, as in, we're both Scottish women who love sport. So I thought if she can do it, then maybe that's how I get a job in sport, because other than this it was going to be, I don't know, physiotherapy or personal training or that kind of thing. I knew I wanted to do something in sport. I wasn't sure what, but once I saw that, I kind of thought, no, do you know what, that's going to be maybe what I want to do.
It was quite a surreal moment then when you did land that job with the BBC covering golf, that it was Hazel Irvine that you actually took over from. It was like coming with the times almost.
It was amazing. I actually wrote to her when I was 14 and asked her how to kind of go about.
Did you get a response back?
I did. She wrote back to me, but she says she's thrilled about now that she actually knows me. That would have been embarrassing if I didn't. But no, so she did. So it was really surreal. I remember the first time I worked with her was on the snooker, and I was doing sort of all the kind of feature interview inserts that they put like in between frames and all that kind of stuff, and the post-match interviews and stuff, and that was quite surreal, working along, like not directly alongside her, but in the same production as her, was quite a big moment for me. But yeah, to follow her on the golf's been unreal.
So how did you go from STV then to kind of to break in? It was the FA Cup, if I'm right in saying, the first kind of main presenting role, or was there any other work before then that kind of gave you that exposure?
I'm not really sure what my first presenting one is. You'd think I would remember that, don't you? Well, from STV, I did those highlights and stuff for the football, but then they started doing a rugby programme as well, and I enjoy rugby, so I did quite a lot of work on the rugby, did a lot of the interviews, and kind of a bit more on the rugby than I was doing on the football. It was a smaller team involved, so you kind of had to do a little bit more. But from there, STV, their football contract and everything stopped at the end of that season, so I knew I was only there for 8 or 9 months, so I was kind of constantly in the background still trying to decide what I was going to do next. I wasn't going to let that be my one opportunity and then that was it, over. And that was when BBC Alba started doing football, so I managed to get a job on the production company that was producing all the football and sport and stuff for BBC Alba. So again, a really small crew and a really small team, so I did a lot of the interviews and stuff for that, post-match and sort of feature interviews and stuff. And I can't even remember what my first presenting was. It must have been...
Probably the rugby, STV.
FA Cup. I didn't present the rugby for STV, but maybe it was the FA Cup, or Match of the Day 2 Extra it might have been. But anyway, beside the point, I was quite lucky in that, you just get to know a lot of people when you're doing various different things, and I had been working in London for IMG doing golf, and then I moved back up to Scotland because I knew that there was kind of things were changing around, and there was perhaps going to be a few more opportunities, and so I decided to move back to Scotland and go freelance then, and did various things. And down south in Manchester and BBC Sport, Final Score, which is the results programme, got a new programme editor, and he was looking to kind of reinvent it a little bit. He wanted some younger voices, he wanted some female voices, doing kind of the match reports, so and updates from around the grounds. So I got in contact with him, and he gave me a few games, starting off in Scotland. Then he started giving me a couple of championship in England, and I think at the end of my second season, I think I finished that season doing a game at Newcastle in the Premier League, and from there I've been getting sort of Premier League games all the way through, which is great. But then again, you meet people, and so they kind of were like, oh, well, maybe we can give you this, or maybe we can give you that, and then they said, oh, how do you feel about presenting Match of the Day 2 Extra? I'm pretty sure that would have been my first one, which is broadcast on radio and on telly, so it's kind of a weird programme. It doesn't exist anymore. But
how did it come about with you becoming the host of the women's football show for the BBC?
Again, I'm not really sure. I think it's just you sort of... obviously, the thing is that I've played football so much, and I enjoy the women's game, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that you can't really give it the same if you don't enjoy it. You have to have a passion for it, and you have to like it, and you have to believe in what it is you're talking about. Again, opportunities just kind of come up. Jackie Oatley used to do it. She took the job with ITV doing all their football, so it then becomes a little bit of a broadcasters against each other. Like, well, do we want the sort of face of ITV Sport or ITV Football doing BBC Football? So they kind of rejig it slightly, and the opportunities just kind of came from that. I think it probably came from, because it was Jackie that was presenting when I was out at the World Cup in Canada. So I was doing a lot of pitchside hits, from the games, and interviews, and feature material, and all of that sort of thing. So it was maybe a natural progression that I would go in next. The other person who was doing that World Cup was Tina Dahealy, who does a million other things. So that was maybe just you kind of progress through things. But no, I think I've just been really lucky to be sometimes in the right place at the right time.
Do you get much influence on the kind of the programme running for Women's Football Show certain things you want to talk about, or is it a matter of you going on set and saying, right, we've got highlights for this show, can you create notes around it?
It's a little bit of a mixture, because not every game is covered in the same way, as in with number of cameras and commentary and those sorts of things. So you're a little bit restricted. I mean, you could have a game that's got one camera at it and it's an absolute 4-3 thriller, but you can't give it the right. It doesn't look very good on the telly if you've not
someone's cell phone.
If you've got like one camera at these games, and that's the unfortunate thing, and that's comes down to money, and hopefully that will improve as we go on and things will change. But at this moment in time, we have usually 2 games. I think it's a minimum of 2 games that will have multi-camera coverage, possibly more if there's a game live on BT Sport as well. So those 2 games tend to be our feature games, and we'll be at one of them, usually the best one, or the one that's got kind of a little bit more interest in it in terms of the teams or in terms of what it means in the league. So that's kind of how we work that. When it comes to talking points, we usually have a sort of discussion. So there is a programme producer who will come up with the basic running order. These are the topics, and we'll kind of say, okay, can we talk about this, or something happens during the week or whatever. Then we try and fit everything in as much as we can.
So you were saying as well, like having that interest of football kind of obviously helped landing that show. With the golf coverage as well, did it help playing golf as you're growing up as well?
Yeah, I didn't play a lot of golf growing up. My parents did, and so we played on holidays and stuff. But it's not something I ever really took seriously until the last few years. And I think it's just a time thing. And probably a money thing. When you start off going freelance, you're not earning a lot of money, so times are tough. But yeah, and I was also quite, the world of freelance is all quite, when you start in it, it's so uncertain, and I kind of panicked a wee bit. I was thinking, well, if I'm not working, then there's something wrong. So I did a lot at the start, a lot of things that I probably didn't need to do, but it was just that panic of, if I don't work, then I'm never going to kind of get on because somebody else will do it. And then so I was doing a lot of radio bulletin shifts and things that were just time consuming, like full shifts of sort of like 8 hours, so you didn't have an option to go and play golf, sort of thing. So at the beginning, for the first sort of 3 or 4 years, I kind of panicked a lot and didn't really play a lot of golf. But now I've kind of got a little bit more comfortable with, like, if I'm off, I can enjoy it myself. Now, which is a nice place to be. But I mean, you never know what's around the corner. But I'll try and enjoy it while I can.
We were talking before we start recording about what microphone we wanted to use, and you were saying about, you need to go for the blue one because St. Johnstone. I saw a video, it's from a few years ago, about you talking about a scarf. It's kind of got sentimental value to you. For those who have not seen the video, could you give a brief maybe explanation of the scarf and the meaning for yourself?
Yeah, well, I still have the scarf.
Oh,
it kind of feels a little bit threadbare now, but I got it pretty much when I first started going. My dad took me to my first game when I think I was around about 9 or 10, and we went a few times. I think he thought I would go and wouldn't enjoy it because obviously watched it on the telly. I was thinking, I love this game. I played it. I kicked the ball around. I grew up. It was all boys where I grew up, so we all played football together and everything. So I really wanted to go, and I think my dad thought, she's not going to like this. It's going to be cold, and it's I loved it. It was 0-0, and I still loved it. So he probably didn't know what he'd let himself in for when he took me that first day, but I forced him to take me back quite a few times, and then after sort of 3 or 4 times, I said, Dad, I need a scarf if I'm going to come and support this team, So he bought me the scarf, and it's just been the one I've never had another one. It's always been that one. I've only got one scarf, and it's the one that he bought me that night. And my gran had to darn it when it got like bits of it kind of fell apart. She stitched it back together, and it's just. But every game I've ever been to has had that scarf.
Probably a bit of a contrast to my first game. I think it was Cabernet side, like junior football, and I was, I think, 5 or 6, and I was absolutely terrified. Yeah, and I avoided football for many years after that.
Yeah.
Have you taken the scarf, maybe snuck it into any like big, European matches, or
And
had an away day with the scarf?
I had it with me, obviously the Scottish Cup final, it was with me. I was recording videos for the SFA that campaign, that Scottish Cup campaign. And starting off round one all the way through, and it was all to do with fans behind the scenes and what happens behind the scenes of clubs and club legends and all that. It was really good fun. I really enjoyed it and went to some really, really good places. Anyway, got to the semi-final, and it was Dundee United Rangers and St Johnstone Aberdeen, and so they picked St Johnstone Aberdeen, and I was like, oh my god, we've got all the way to the semi-final, and now I have to go and cover them. I'll be devastated if we don't get through this. Aberdeen had already absolutely hammered us in the League Cup semi-final, so they said to me, they were like, actually, we want to do it with you as the fan, as opposed to the presenter. Just do it with you. I think everyone knows you're a St Johnstone fan. Just do it with you as a fan. Tell your story. So it was brilliant. I got to wear my scarf, and it was really good. And I bumped into so many of my old pals and all that, because everybody had come back from uni or from work. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not uni age anymore, but all pals that I used to go to the football with were all there. So it was brilliant. That was a really special day.
Because saying about everyone knew being a St Johnstone fan, and obviously quite comfortable. See, for myself, for example, for like young journalists coming through, how do you cover up? Who do you support? Do you be open with it? What's your kind of mess with it? Because at times you could be supporting, if I say Kilbirnie Ladeside junior football, there's always going to be one fan out there who says, "Oh, you're impartial," or "You're that." How do you kind of strike a balance with that?
I think I'm lucky that I'm a St Johnstone fan, because nobody seems to be particularly bothered by this. It's like, oh, shame. It's what I usually get. Yeah. No, I think it's just this ridiculous notion that people who, whether you're a player, a coach, a manager, a referee, work in the media, whatever, you've grown up with football and you've grown up supporting somebody, because everybody does. And if you grow up with football and you support someone, I don't really think that it should be something that you hide. But there's obviously rivalries in Scottish football that are quite big, and perhaps it doesn't keep everyone happy if you support one of those teams. But for me, like I say, maybe I would be different if I supported a Celtic or a Rangers or a Hearts or a Hibs or one of the Dundee teams or something. I don't know, maybe I would not be quite so open about it, but maybe it's just because I'm lucky I support a team that I care a lot about, but the rest of Scottish football aren't too fussed about. So I just think it's crazy when people think, oh, you can't support this team or that team. And everybody supports someone when they're kids, and usually it comes from where you grew up or who your parents supported, or St Johnstone were my home team. They were 20 minutes from my house, so that's who I supported. My dad supported them when he was a boy, but he also went to uni in Aberdeen, so he used to go and watch Aberdeen a lot when he was a kid. So, not a kid, when he was a uni student. So he's always had a soft spot for them. And then when I was growing up as well, if St Johnstone were away from home, we'd go and watch Dundee United. We'd go to Tannadice. Not that I would ever wear any Dundee United stuff.
You got no Dundee scarves.
No Dundee United scarves kicking about. But that's the thing. Like I loved football, and we've spent so much of my childhood in Division 1 that going to watch Dundee United was quite a treat. You got to go and watch the teams that and then you would watch the highlights on Saturday night on Sports Scene. But I was at that game. Just the wee things when you're young, and that was actually what was really exciting when St Johnstone got promoted, was that we'd be on the telly on a Saturday night. Do you
have any kind of favourite St Johnstone game, or just favourite football game you've been to maybe over the years?
Favourite St Johnstone game, there are a few. Beating Dundee 1-0, that Paul Kane goal to finish third and get into Europe was incredible. That season there were so many good games. The League Cup final against Rangers, as much as George Albert's hammer put a knife into all our hearts. I mean, it was special. It was my first proper cup final. So that was great. And we beat Celtic, I think, 3 times that season, Rangers twice or something. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was a brilliant season. There were so many good games. But beating Dundee to finish third, and then playing Monaco at home and drawing 3 each with them, and still angry we were denied a penalty.
Never over it.
Special game. The semi-final against Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup win, actually for me, is the one that stands out over the final, which I don't know if that's a weird thing or not, but I've been to a lot of semi-finals and not very many finals, so to get through that semi-final was incredibly special. And then I was out, because I was doing that video, I was out on the pitch at the end of the game, and kind of everybody had gone inside, and it was quite quiet, and I just looked up and there was Jeff Brown just standing there, just looking out, and I was like, what a moment for him. He's done so much for the club. That was quite an emotional moment, and there were guys like who'd worked at the club for years and years who were in the tunnel, tears in their eyes and everything. That was really, really special. Yeah,
and obviously going to games is great, but you play a wee bit as well for Partick Thistle. Just touch on that injury as well. We saw, I think it was you were set to fly out for the Champions League draw.
Champions League draw, yeah.
And then right before with the ankle injury.
The night before.
Yeah, have you begun to recover from it? Do you think you can maybe get back playing soon? Or?
I will definitely kick a ball again.
Yeah,
definitely.
Touch wood.
No,
touch
definitely. Okay, I'll touch wood just in case. I'm not going to let that stop it, because the thing was, I'm at the stage now where I'm just kicking a ball around for fun. Like, with this job, the downside, if it is a downside of this job, is that your weekends are not your own anymore. So I think I've made 3 or 4 games in the last 2 seasons or something. So realistically, I wasn't playing anymore. But I love the group of girls. I love the training, and I just love being around it. I love playing it. So I was training every week, and I went to training more than half the team that turn up on a Sunday, but no, I went to training as much as I could, and it was at training that I did the injury. But I will definitely, my aim is to in some way be part of pre-season training in sort of February time. And
as well, promotion as well to the Scotland Premier League 2. How big a boost was that? It
was huge. Like, it was, we were docked a few points during the season for playing an ineligible player, which was a little bit of frustration, but that kind of made it a bit more of a challenge to get promotion. But they've done incredibly well. There's some very good players in there, like do a lot of good, like a lot of hard work, and it was brilliant to see them get that promotion. It's going to be really tough next season. It is a step up, because the way the kind of league works, so we'd finished 3rd in the league to get promoted. I'm pretty sure we were 3rd, because there's colt teams in our league who can't go up to be in the same league as the sort of parent clubs. So, so there were teams in our league, a couple of teams in our league who were better than us. So, we know it's going to be a step up when you get into the sort of Premier League setup. So it will be a real challenge, but I know they're all really looking forward to it. I think they're sort of starting to plan for next season in these next couple of weeks. Everyone's had a little bit of a break, and then I think there's a team meeting this weekend, which obviously I'll be working, so I won't be there. But
you can go on FaceTime maybe.
But so yeah, they're starting to sort of plan for next season, and then pre-season usually starts February time, and then the league's about end of March or something. So yeah.
And obviously a lot of people probably listening or watching will know your work from BT Sport over the last few years. Obviously, when BT first came onto the scene for covering Scottish football, it was a whole new face. We hadn't really seen coverage being shared by another company before. There was a bit of not kind of controversy, but people kind of thinking a bit wary about the coverage, but the feedback has been phenomenal. How have you reacted to the feedback from fans, both of the coverage of the Scottish game over the last few years?
Oh, the feedback's been amazing. It's been, you don't really tend to get a lot of nice stuff written on social media. It seems to be a place where people go to complain about things. So to have people say all this nice stuff, it's really rewarding. It's rewarding mostly for, it's lovely for me to read it, but for the guys that work in the office, and and they're in there all week and they work so hard. The production team behind the scenes, they do so much work, cutting analysis, finding analysis, sort of planning shoots, going out in the shoots, putting the pieces together. We have the Football Extra programme, which is an extra half an hour. Like we just do that. It's not like...
It's not as much pressure as like a live coverage. imagine.
It's all live.
Well, like for the build up, pre-match build up.
Yeah, all that. So we do all that sort of extra stuff just off our own backs. The crew are there, and so you might think, oh well, the crew are there. It's only an extra half an hour, but it's not. It's an extra. It's all the preparation that Darryl and the pundits put into to that side of it. It's all the extra work, cutting the VTs and going out and doing additional interviews and all those kind of things that we all do. But yeah, the production team in the office, I think it's great for them to see that it's not something that's gone unnoticed. That when you sometimes think, how many people, people look at figures. This is the problem. This is, ultimately it's what it comes down to. People look at numbers and they look at figures, and you put a lot of work in, and you maybe see, some people will look at the viewing figures and say, well, they're not very high, and it's like, but there's
not a lot of people in Scotland.
Exactly. But the people that are watching it are enjoying it, and they're telling us, and that's really heartwarming. Yeah,
and as well, obviously, news broke earlier this week that coverage will be moving on from BT. I think from 2020 onwards. The fan reception again for BT losing the coverage. I've never really seen personally a group of fans from all different clubs come together so much and in support of BT. Again, how have you reacted to that?
I know it's been amazing. Unfortunately, it doesn't win you contracts, which is the downside. But look, it does come down to numbers, and ultimately, the difficulty is that BT Sport and BT PLC I don't understand how it works, but they're different groups, and again, they punch numbers into machines and they come out with how much money they're willing to spend, and ultimately it wasn't enough, which is a real shame, because I think the thing that all of us are going to miss the most is working with each other. It's such a good team that's been built over these sort of 4 or 5 years. I've not been part of it from the very start, but a lot of the production team who are there have been, and they've built something that's, I think Scottish football has been lacking for years and years, not just since BT have come in, but it's been something that Scottish football needed. I think there's a genuine passion there. I mean, we don't ask Chris Sutton to jump in the North Sea. That's him. Yeah. He comes up with these things because it gets people talking, and it gets people watching, and it's been brilliant to be part of that. And I mean, we all just love Scottish football. I mean, I think that's what comes across. And for a lot of us, it's going to be very hard to continue working within Scottish football, because as much as there are other broadcasters now involved, everybody's got their own way of working, and whether any of us are part of anybody else's plans, who knows. But right now, it's I guess for the likes of myself anyway, and Darryl and Chris, and maybe that's it for us in Scottish football, and that for me would be really, really sad if that's the case.
It'd be, I think, speaking for a lot of fans, quite gutting, because it's always good to have a bit of competition as well for coverage. But you're saying about, for example, Chris Sutton there, Chris Sutton, like Michael Stewart, Al McCoy's, they're all kind of characters. All have got, they're well-known figures within Scottish football and with now in the TV scene. How much easier did they make your job, for example, you fire in a question, then, for example, Sutton goes on a massive rant, and then Michael Stewart jumps in and they have a back and forth. How much easier is that for you?
I like it. I'm quite happy for them to chat away, but sometimes it's trying to rein them back. No, they're brilliant, and again, that just comes down to their passion. Like they don't, we don't sit and say, right, you think you have that point and you have that point, and this is just their own.
It's natural.
Yeah, it's completely natural. Nothing. I mean, obviously the openers when you kick Chris Sutton into the sea or whatever, they're obviously contrived, but the rest of it, none of it is. It's natural passion. It's a bunch of people who've played, for like Chris. I mean, won the Premier League. I mean, his career was incredible, and you look at obviously Ali's career was unreal from a Scottish point of view. These guys have retained that passion, and they want Scottish football to be as good as it can be, and they want everyone to enjoy it for what it is. And I think the thing as well for me anyway, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, when I work in the Premier League in England nearly every Saturday, and I mean, the football's incredible. The players are unbelievable. The facilities are great. The you know, the stadiums, they're always full. You know, all of that. For me, it's lost its soul a little bit, and that's why I find and love working in Scotland, because it's raw and it's passionate and it's, you know, everybody cares about what happens to their team, and you know, and that isn't necessarily the case in the Premier League, and I think it just makes it so special. I mean, football is more than what happens between you know 3 and 5 on a Saturday afternoon. There's no half and half scarves in Scotland.
I've actually got a few stories about half and half scarves, but I'll keep it for off the podcast. But as well, like, just to talk about BT's covers again, this is no way to disrespect any other broadcasters, but there's a certain passion towards the teams that are not Celtic and Rangers, maybe your Motherwells, your Hamiltons, your St Johnstons. There's
I have to try and stir that passion sometimes, you know.
there's always just so much detail there if you look for it, and then it comes across in that coverage as well.
Well, we have Michael and Craigs, and you know these guys. You know, you bring Kevin Thompson in, and all these pundits that we have. You know, they haven't just played for Celtic and Rangers. They've played for various other teams, and you know, and we try and get our team. We obviously have our core with Chris and Ali and Craigs, but we try and complement them with players who have attachments with, you know, the various clubs, because, you know, Scottish football is about more than Celtic and Rangers, and for me it's very easy to say that, because I think I'd been going to football matches for about 3 or 4 years before I ever saw Celtic or Rangers play live, you know, and my football's in the first division. It was, you know, it was so it's never been like the kind of big thing for me. I didn't grow up in the Central Belt, so again, going to Edinburgh, Hearts and Hibs and stuff, I mean, these were teams that like St Johnstone would play in cups maybe if we got far enough, you know. I mean, my kind of, and I think that's important, like with the group that we all put together, and it's the same behind the scenes. I mean, we have, I think, nearly every team represented in terms of who our production team support, and the other thing as well is our production team are all Scottish, all based in Scotland. You know, they all live up here, they are absorbed in Scottish football, they've all supported Scottish football teams since they were, you know, similar stories to myself, and I'm sure you as well, you know, like, you know, they've grown up with Scottish football, and so the passion's not, it runs throughout the whole team that put the programmes together. So I think that's important, and you know, it's difficult sometimes to find that when you're, you know, the thing is that the BT Sport team up here, that's our jobs, or maybe not solely my job, but you know, certainly the full-time staff up here that's their job, is to produce Scottish football for BT Sport. And they don't have, like, you know, Sky have to facilitate a lot of other things with Sky Sports News, etc., etc. So you know, when your sole focus is to do the best you can on a match day, it's, you know, that's what you're kind of putting your whole week towards.
And just last thing about BT, more specifically SPFL Extra, there's always these kind of quirky, I think you've probably seen them say, the quirky kind of intros with
we've got one planned as well for this weekend.
Give
I'm
any,
not giving you
any
away,
no indication.
No.
Alright, we'll make sure to be tuned in. Is there any, do you have any kind of influence in that? I know McCoy should take out Sutton today, or
it's wherever the ideas come from. So although I'm not in the office Monday to Friday, like if you come up with an idea and you think, oh, maybe that would work, you know,
stick in like a WhatsApp group.
You just send it in and see if you can expand in it or whatever. So no, it's good, and the same for our sit down interviews. You know, I read a story about this guy who's does this away from football. All right, let's see if we can get that, you know, do that, because that's, you know, it's quite easy to go to a training centre and sit down a player in a dressing room and talk about what happened last weekend and what's going to happen this weekend. But we want to try and do something that's a little bit different if we can. I mean, we have restrictions because
access,
ultimately, you know, the access can sometimes be difficult, or you know, players can be busy and, you know, all that kind of thing. So if we can, we like to try and do things that are a little bit different, or take players away, or, you know, or maybe get a couple of them together and talk about something that's possibly not football related. I think the last interview I did was with Mikey Devlin and Scott McKenna, and we were talking about who was the best cook in the flat. You know, I mean, it's it's that kind of stuff that's different. You know,
it's almost like, for example, Women's Football Show has got all those kind of different kind of quirky segments. I think last one I watched was I think it was a scroll and stop, where like you scroll through a phone, you have to explain the image. Like that, those kind of segments could obviously translate to coverage, and as well, like even if you're looking at a social media point of view, those clips go viral.
Those are social media.
I think
videos, yeah.
I think
but
one
they
of the,
work.
we were saying before was along shadowing, I think Dunfermline St Mirren game last season, and one of the production staff was saying that video of I think it's Michael Stewart tackling Chris Sutton is the most viral piece of BT Sport content.
Yeah, Craigs will hate that you took it away from him. It was Craigs.
Craigs, sorry.
Tackle. He's gonna hate that he got that one taken away from him. No, that's his big moment. That's his favourite moment on telly.
It's a great tackle. I think he won the ball. But those kind of pieces of content does go viral.
It does, and that's the world we live in now. You're not just producing telly anymore. You're producing for like social media, for online content. I mean, it's kind of a strange world that we live in now, but that is a big part of it. Is and anything controversial or any discussions or anything that's said. I mean, we don't. Like I said, that just happens with the guys that we have, but. All that sort of content it's important. The online and those videos on the Women's Football Show are part of their online strategy and social media strategy, but they're well produced and they're well done, so you can get away with sticking them out on TV, but essentially they were for part of that online strategy, and there's loads of different ones.
Do you think not even just for the Scottish scene, but like English cover as well for BT Sport, it's the informal sense? Of course it's still professional, but it's the conversations that it doesn't feel scripted, it's more natural. I think that's the biggest plus that BT Sport has going for it at the moment.
I think it's I think anything that certainly I personally watch on TV that involves people sitting around chatting, I like it to just feel natural. You want to kind of feel like it's in your living room as opposed to on the TV screen, if that sounds right.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But
like you're there, behind the camera watching it.
I'm a big fan of like Mark Chapman. I think he's brilliant at that. He's very conversational. It's great that stuff he does on that NFL show. Those guys are
honestly
brilliant.
I'm a big fan of it, because that relationship's from there has only grown for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then they act like they're all best pals.
Yeah. It's great. I think he's very good at it, and Daryl I think's brilliant at it as well. And and you have to be able to rein them in, and Daryl's brilliant at that as well. He can put them away with the one line, which is
the glaring eyes
funny.
of Sutton on them though could be a bit
but yeah, that's I think we've moved away from the stuffy studio. I mean, I'm not saying don't have studios, but that sort of formal shirt and tie, everybody very I think now people like to move away from that a little bit more.
Yeah. Just finally, just to wrap things up, as I touched on when we started that, some people listening or watching to this will be students. What is your best advice for students or just young journalists trying to break into the industry, trying to get roles similar to you, whether it be up here in Scotland or England or even abroad?
First of all, I would try and figure out what it is you want to do. There are so many jobs, and in fact you probably, if you ever get into, like when you came to the game at Dunfermline, you're probably like, my goodness, what on earth are all these people doing? Because that's why I was like, the first time I went to NOB, I mean, the jobs behind the scenes are massive. So figure out kind of not necessarily like which specific job, but do you want to be behind the camera? Do you want to be in production? Do you want to be in front of camera? Do you want to be involved in the live production, so that the replays and the things that go out live during a match? I'd try and figure out which area you kind of want to look towards. Email everyone, phone everyone. Don't let people knocking you back stop you, because you get hundreds and thousands of them. But
it's the one that counts that comes through.
Yeah, and even if the one you get back and says, oh yeah, you can come and have a look at this, and you don't really think that you really want to do that job, or you don't do it. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what you're going to pick up. You don't know where it might lead, and it is all about being out there, getting your face out there, meeting people, absorbing everything, learning everything. Like I'm still learning now every single time. It never stops. So you have to start by just picking up everything. And even if you learn something that you think, oh, I'm never going to use that, the fact that you know what that person does can help you in whatever it is that you end up going to do, because the more roles you know within a production, the easier,
more flexible you can be.
It can be, yeah, and the better you are going to do your job, because you know, oh, I know that person needs that, or I know that person needs that, so it makes you better at what you're doing. So yeah, do everything, speak to everyone, and just keep believing that you know that you will get there, and hopefully you will. Yeah,
because obviously for me personally, the course at Edinburgh Napier University does have that broad sense. You don't really say, okay, you're going to be a political journalist, you're going to be a sports journalist. It's more so, here's the broadcast skills for TV, radio, print, design, and you get taught everything, and then you're just going to go, and then you can slot into any role. But yeah, thank you very much, Eilidh, for coming on for Energy Sport Podcast. Have you got any projects coming up in the next few months?
What have I got coming up? A lot of football, and then back to golf in April. My favourite place in the world, Augusta National. Oh,
I always loved, like, I've never really got into golf myself. It's probably something I need to kind of pick up soon, but Augusta, I would love to just go for a day and just kind of just see it.
It's like Disneyland for golf. It's like, I mean, I say it's my favourite place in the world. That's maybe pushing it a little bit far, but it's definitely up there. It's really special. It's difficult to describe. It's like no place you'll ever go. I mean, it's immaculate, absolutely immaculate, and it just looks the way it looks on TV. Like, the colours just seem to like be more intense than anywhere else any other golf course you would visit, and it's very, very special. Very hilly though. That doesn't come across on the telly. Very hilly.
Because I remember watching last year with Garcia, and it's almost like a replay of the same putt.
Stop it! That was awful.
Literally, we if you look back to another Energy Sport podcast, I think it was the Ryder Cup preview. I think we did. We're talking about Sergio. It might even been back to the Masters actually, like back earlier in 2018. We talk about that moment, and it's just it's heartbreaking because Sergio. Yeah. So happy for Sergio though to get that. I think the highest points forever for a European player. Yeah.
Greatest European Ryder Cup player in history, which is pretty impressive.
Very good Ryder Cup as well.
On the points thing.
And of course, the Women's Football Show every Saturday, or is it every Sunday?
Sunday, although it probably technically goes into Monday here, because I think it's on an hour later in Scotland than it is in England. But it's terrible time. But you know, I'm not in charge of that, unfortunately. So it's on iPlayer all week, though.
iPlayer as well. I can catch up.
Yeah. Every Sunday that there is a round of league fixtures. We don't do cup.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for either listening or watching to the Energy Sport Podcast. Be sure to find out, subscribe on iTunes, or if you're on Android as well, there's always that option too. And look for more content on energysport.net.